All right, welcome back to Subto Investor. My name is Hans, and in this episode, I'm going to confess I rehabbed a property, and sometimes you have to rehab these properties that you're picking up that are low equity, which are subject to deals. In this episode, I'm going to show you how we took a no deal, we rehabbed it creatively and for a very low cost. So stay tuned to find out how we did this with pictures, real examples, real numbers, so that you can learn from it and hopefully grow and expand your business in creative finance. Now, this is deal 7 of my Real Subto Deal Breakdown series, a video series here on my YouTube channel in which I'm showing you the ins and outs of actual subject to and creative finance deals I've closed and which I hold to this day so that you can accelerate your business and incorporate creative finance into it, which is especially crucial with the high interest rates we're seeing today so that you can maximize your profit potential. Now, if you didn't see the first video of this particular deal, you could check out the last episode in this video playlist where I introduce how we got this particular lead and closed it. It's a subject to deal with a fantastic interest rate, I believe in the 3% interest range that is, and how we JV'd and actually cut our wholesaler from which we bought the property. We cut them in as an equity partner so that they actually are an owner of this deal and they sacrifice the upfront cash that they might get on an assignment fee for actual ownership in the deal. So check out that video to see how we structured that using a land trust. But in this episode, I want to talk about real quick how we self-closed, first of all, with the seller and why we did that in the first place. But then I want to really spend the bulk of this video talking about how we rehabbed this deal, because this was a low equity property. The loan balance plus the rehab that it would have taken to get it marketable, it would have put us way into negative equity territory. So the only way that we could actually make this deal work was if we creatively rehabbed it. And so truth is sometimes on these deals you will need to get your hands dirty and do a little bit of rehabbing. And so this video is geared toward those of you who may have questions about that process, who may not be as experienced as a general contractor might be with renovating properties. So I'll be showing you before and after photos and a detailed analysis of exactly what we did and how much we spent on each item at the end of this video. So stay tuned for that. But first of all, I just want to talk about how we closed this deal ourselves without using a title company. And I'm glad we got the experience doing that on this deal. However, it's something I always recommend against. I always recommend closing through a title company because you want to leave it to the professionals, the title professionals whose job it is to do all the due diligence on what exactly is on title. And sometimes it can be tricky finding out everything that's on title. We've had scenarios where our title company had to chase down a release on a mortgage that got paid off, but the release never got filed. So we couldn't close the deal because this mortgage was still showing up on record. And it took a couple months before we found a conclusion to that one. But all that is to say is it's always advisable to close with a reputable title company who will be able to do these deals subject to. But the reason we decided to self-close this one is because the seller was in the process of getting a loan modification and we didn't want to close during that process. We had done it in the past and we just thought it'd be safer if we self-closed it and did not record the deed until the loan modification was complete. And then at that point, we filed the deed with the county. But the other factor in this was that we wanted to start renovating the property pronto because we knew it would be a little bit of a process and we would have holding costs. And we didn't want to put lots of time and money into that rehab unless we actually owned the property. And so that's why we decided to self-close this particular deal and just get the renovation process underway, let the loan modification get complete, and then we would just file it with the county. Process of self-closing was really quite simple, and this is going to widely vary depending on what state you're in, and you need to consult a legal expert to know what documents are required. Essentially what it involves is you get the paperwork. Part of that's going to be the deed that's going to transfer from the seller to you, and then there'll be other things that you'll want to have as well. But it basically involved getting a mobile notary. It's always advisable to have a mobile notary on your team, somebody who is going to be there for you at the drop of a dime if you need a document notarized. And so what self-closing a deal looks like is essentially getting your notary there at the closing table. Now, this was actually a Chick-fil-A. We met at a Chick-fil-A to close this deal, which was awesome. Chick-fil-A sauce is the best, by the way. We met at the Chick-fil-A. We discussed. The mobile notary came shortly thereafter. We got all of our paperwork in order, which included our subject to closing packets, very important packet of documents, about a dozen documents or so, which essentially have all of the disclosures, all of the addendums that you need when you close a subject to deal. So we got everything signed and notarized, including the deed itself, and actually close on that property at a Chick-fil-A with a mobile notary, and we did it ourselves. Now, again, that is kind of an exceptional circumstance, but occasionally you'll find yourself in a situation where you need to do that, and it's good to have the confidence, be able to self-close if need be, especially when buying subject to. So that kind of summarizes that. We did have a verbal agreement with the seller we gave her a little bit of cash. Now, this deal had negative equity, so we were really hesitant to give anything to the seller, but she was very, very insistent, just like a nagging Nancy. I don't know if that's a phrase, but she was very insistent about getting something. So we gave her $250 at the closing table and then promised her to get another $250 once we had placed a tenant buyer and at least recouped some of our capital back. And we knew we probably would be in this deal some cash, but we're just trying to mitigate that as much as possible. In fact, I think it was $500 at closing and $500 when we placed our tenant buyer. That's what it was. So we gave her $1,000 total. Big picture, all right, this deal ended up cash flowing us and is cash flowing us $460 a month. Now, that is after we pay our equity partner, right? Our wholesaler who brought us the deal and is a 25% owner in the property. So we pay him, and then after that, we cash flow $460, which makes for $5,520 a year of annual net income for us, right? So just about $5,500 a year. Now, what we were all in on this property, that means after we put forth all of our expenses, our rehab, our closing costs, etc. So we spent about $13,000 total on this deal, and we got back $10,000 from a tenant buyer on an option consideration fee, which left us $3,000 in the deal. So we're $3,000 in the deal of our own cash. So if you take the $5,520 that we make annually on the cash flow on this deal, let's call it $5,500 a year, divide that by $3,000, our cash on cash return is 42%, which is a great cash on cash return. Again, anything to me above 20% is pretty stinking good. We can usually get infinite cash on cash returns on these Subto deals, but occasionally a 42% cash on cash return, it's not bad. But what made this all possible was really the creativity with which we approached the rehab. Now, that meant that we actually had to be physically at the property a lot. I mean, we did a lot of stuff ourselves. So we'll get into that and show you kind of how it looks to rehab a property yourself and learn things along the way. But first, the bigger question here, when you're analyzing deals and making offers, it's helpful to know rehabbing and renovation regardless. Just take it into account as you're making offers because you need to know what things cost. I mean, you are in the real estate business, so at some point, you're going to have to learn some basics about rehabbing a property, even if it is just the basics. So with that, when I first started, I was watching a lot of YouTube videos, and there were two people in particular who broke it down on a whiteboard, and I want to show you what they said. So check this out. A couple rules of thumb to take into account as you're trying to estimate rehab costs, okay? And then I'll show you the pictures and the actual spreadsheet of our rehab so that you can see what we actually spent on our particular rehab of this property. All right, but here we have the king himself, the GOAT of real estate investing, at least in terms of my generation, the millennials, Jerry Norton, right? So this guy has obviously a ton of experience, and on one of his YouTube videos, he talked about estimating rehab costs, and I took a screenshot of this just because I wanted to, just like when you're comping properties, if you don't have MLS, well, even if you do, you're looking at multiple properties to get your estimated value, right? You're looking at maybe like 6 or 7 different comps to kind of gauge the value of your property. And if you don't have the MLS when you're trying to gauge the value of a property, you may be looking at 7 different websites. You're looking at Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com, PropStream, Privy, what have you. And you're trying to just get as many data points to estimate that value. Well, it's the same way when you're rehabbing. I like to have several different metrics that I can sort of test against my idea of how much a rehab is going to cost. So this is just one of them. I'll show you another one in a second. So here's what Jerry says, right? So if it's under 1,500 square feet and it's a light rehab, you're looking at spending $10K-ish. If it's an average size rehab and it's an under 1,500 square foot property, you're looking at spending $25K. If it's a heavy rehab, like fully gutting everything, you might be looking at $50K. And then he goes up in terms of square footage, 1,500 to 2,500 square feet house. A light, average, and heavy rehab respectively, you might estimate 15, 35, 75K. Now this was pre-COVID lockdown and inflation era, so you might even tack on an additional $5,000 to each of these to bring this up to date. Okay, and then take a look at his 1,500 to 3,500 square foot rehab estimates, and then his 3,500 to 5,000 square foot rehab estimates. I think the one that's being blocked is the heavy rehab. At the very bottom is probably like 100K. Now, this is going to vary depending on where you live, what neighborhood you're in, and the price of labor and material at the time. So just take this with a grain of salt, but it's one data point by which you can sort of gauge how much you're going to spend on a rehab. Now, what's interesting is our property was under 1,500 square feet, and I'd consider it between a light and an average rehab. So maybe kind of meet in the middle there. You might be looking at $17,000, $18,000 for the rehab that we did, but we pulled it off at like $12,500. Now here is another grandmaster investor. I love Brent Daniels. I cut my teeth on his videos when I was learning how to wholesale. Just fantastic stuff. Both Jerry and Brent. I just have great respect for both of these guys. Brent Daniels had a similar chart here that he put out. And, just take a look at this. You could pause this video, take your own screenshot of this, and just put it in a Google Drive file for later when you get to a point where you need to reference this. But he, again, kind of classifies properties in terms of an easy rehab, which is really just cosmetic. It might be carpet paint. That's it. Needs work. You might be gutting a kitchen. You might be doing one kitchen or one bath, or you might be doing some like a new roof in addition to a cosmetic rehab. So you got maybe some system structure things and a cosmetic in the middle tier. But then this is bad, the heavy rehab, that's, you're fully gutting probably the whole house, re-drywalling, repainting, re-flooring, and then you probably have some structural things that you're doing as well. If it's HVAC or foundation or roof or sewer or plumbing, electrical, whatever it might be. But I just find this grid a helpful thing. Obviously, it's just ballpark. It's to give you a general idea so that when you're making offers, you can quickly have a rehab estimate in your mind. Now, when you're actually going to close on a property and take it down yourself, you're going to want to sort of do an itemized rehab scope of work, which is going to project how much money exactly everything is going to cost. So that way you go in to closing and taking a deal down yourself with eyes wide open as to the actual scope of work of what you're going to need to do. I'll give you another general rule of thumb, a third sort of data point, if you will, on estimating rehab costs. And that would be you take your square footage and then you're going to multiply it. If it's a light rehab, you multiply it by $10 a square foot, between $10 and $15 a square foot. If it's an average rehab or medium tier rehab, then you might multiply your square feet by $25 to $35 a square foot. And if it's a heavy rehab, full gut, then you're going to take your square footage and multiply that by, you might go $40 to $60 or $45 to $65 a square foot. And that again will give you a very rough ballpark rehab estimate. So again, let me just stress to you that if you're actually going to be doing a rehab, you don't want to follow these rough metrics. You're going to want to do an itemized analysis of everything that you're going to be spending money on. And it's always advisable to have a professional general contractor come and give you a bid. In fact, get several bids on everything so that you get a good idea of what things actually cost in your market at your time. But that being said, let me show you the before and after pictures of this property, this subject to property that we purchased and rehabbed. And I'm going to show you what we did, and then I'll give you the breakdown on the numbers of what we spent. All right, so I did show photos in the previous episode, so I'll do this really quickly just to give you a general sense of the condition of the property when we bought it. Here was the main bathroom. Here was the kitchen. Another view of the kitchen. Main bathroom again. Where the washer and dryer was, there was some mold growing on the wall there and a plumbing leak as well. Living space, living area. That laminate floor was water damaged, by the way. that wood paneling and that ugly staircase there with where it used to be carpet. The carpet was all demoed. It was very, very nasty and gross. Gross color. Those baseboard heaters were not working. Those were also aluminum windows, which needed to be replaced. We did not replace them. However, we did replace the screens on all the windows. This was the bathroom upstairs. The tile in the bath was quite shoddy, and I'll show you what we did with that. This was the master bedroom, and the flooring, you're just looking at the subflooring because the carpet had been torn off and demoed. There was a leak from the hot water heater at some point, which was nestled underneath the countertops in the kitchen on this property. All right, so now let me show you the after photos, okay? Voila! After photos. Man, this makes me happy. This makes me smile. So what we did, I had a friend who was looking for work at this time and was very, very handy, and he ended up coming into town on multiple weekends and would work like these long weekends, and we paid him pretty good for him and pretty good for us because he was getting just a ton of hours all at a time, and I think it might have been like $35 an hour for him to do a bunch of stuff. So that's creative tip number one is, do you have to hire a professional contractor? It's more likely you'll get quality work that with a professional contractor, but not always. I knew this friend was reliable, was looking for work. You might think about this in your own business. Are there any friends who are looking for work? Do you know anyone? Maybe it's friends of family, children who are in high school, young men or women who are looking for experience and for work, and you can justifiably pay them a lower wage than maybe typically is the average in your market. So what we did with this kitchen is a few different things, and let me just give you a couple different views here. All right, so let's just talk about this kitchen real quick. Cabinets, they were gross dark oak, okay, but they were clean. One thing you're going to find in hoarder houses, and we bought quite a few of them, is that things don't get used because there's so much possessions or collectibles, I just call it junk, all over the house. I mean, stacked up to the ceilings in some cases. So things don't get used. The stove wasn't getting used, the sink wasn't getting used, and the cabinets were actually in great shape. The countertops were in great shape. They just looked outdated. So what we did was we kept the cabinets, we took off the hardware, and we spray painted the hardware, because finding new hardware for old cabinets can be very tricky because the hole sizes don't always match up, and it can be, you might be re-drilling holes, then you have two existing holes, then you got a Bondo, two existing holes. No. Just go get a can of like Rust-Oleum spray paint or something made from metal, and you can clean and then really just don't even have to clean very well. Spray paint the existing hardware and put it back on the cabinets. Also, there's all sorts of cabinet painting products nowadays to paint your cabinets. You're going to probably have to do at least 2 coats, but it's a lot cheaper than replacing and updating your kitchen cabinets. So we painted the cabinets this sort of slate dark gray. We spray painted the hardware, and we also painted that faux brick, which is the backsplash on the wall. We literally just spray painted that white. Now, we did replace the appliances. However, we were able to find them super cheap. In fact, I think we took one. That dishwasher is from my own old house because I got a new one. And so instead of throwing that one out or selling it for pennies on the dollar, I just put it in this property. That sink is the original sink, and I believe the faucet is the original faucet. We just really scrubbed it really well with steel wool to get off all of the gook. Stainless steel can clean up really nicely even if it looks like it's irredeemable. Now get this, countertops. On retrospect, since the wood countertops are kind of back in, maybe I would have just left them, but we decided to get them painted. Now when I say painted, we hired a professional painter who was known for doing this kind of work. The material that they use is not just paint, it's actually a very durable kind of material. I don't know the formula, but some kind of urethane or something where they put the paint in it to get it to be a real durable surface. And so we had those countertops spray painted, basically kind of epoxied. I'm not sure what you call it. I think he calls it reglazing. So he glazed those countertops. Looks friggin' awesome. So we did hire like most of that stuff out. The tile, now look at the tile. If you go to the before photos, that tile was a nasty sort of salmon color floor tile, those large 18 by 18 floor tiles there. We actually used a Rust-Oleum floor recoating product where it's essentially paints plus a coating, a top coat, a clear coat that goes over it to give it a seal so that, again, that the finish is durable. I actually painted that tile myself, but it looks quite fantastic. Now we had our general handyman, he's a contractor. He replaced all the light fixtures. He basically does that in all the properties where we do sort of a light to moderate renovation. So that light fixture, he put that in. And yeah, that just about does it for the kitchen. We did have the entire house painted by that friend of mine who would come down for very long weekends. I mean, I'm talking he would work close to 50 hours coming down on a Friday and leaving on a Monday. He just worked a ton. So here's the main bath. You can see what we did is we did the same thing with that floor tile. We painted it. We painted the floor tile. Super cheap. We just picked up the product from Home Depot and it worked out really well. We also got a countertop product because we didn't want to pay to have this little tiny laminate countertop for that sink to be glazed. We did it in like 2 hours for like 20 or 30 bucks, the product from Home Depot, and I just painted that myself. We didn't replace the vanity, we just cleaned it up really nicely. We cleaned that mirror. We basically did a deep clean to this entire property, replaced the toilet. Replacing toilets is pretty cheap. Replacing vanities in general is pretty cheap, but it was just easier to sort of give this vanity a makeover. We did not replace the sink or the faucet. Sometimes we'll replace the faucet if it's super grody, but again, with a steel brush, you can clean up stainless steel most of the time. This is the main living area. We did not update the windows. That's something we usually don't do. We usually get away with not updating windows if they need to be updated. It's like as long as the glass is not cracked. Actually, there was one pane in this house, one glass pane that we did have to have a glass repair person come by and just replace a pane of glass. And I think that was like 150 bucks. But in this room, if you recall, it was dark laminate lock-in flooring, like plank flooring, not the vinyl stuff, not the luxury vinyl stuff that's often used, but the laminate stuff is susceptible to water damage usually, which is why people usually go with vinyl. I know products are upgrading and changing all the time. But what we decided to do was actually just go over the surface of that old laminate floor, which was swelling and damaged in many places, with just sheet vinyl. Sheet vinyl is super cheap. It's probably the cheapest flooring option, maybe besides carpet, but you just go to Menards or whatever, you get a large sheet of it and you lay it down and you just cut it out with a utility blade, a razor blade, and you glue it down. We did not do that. Our handyman did that, but the finish, the look is fantastic. And man, we did not spend very much on that flooring. Way less than we would have on vinyl plank flooring because the install time was so fast and the material cost was a lot less. Now we did upgrade all the baseboard heaters, which by the way isn't very expensive to do. And we upgraded the thermostat or the dial where you adjust the temperature. But our handyman did that and it was a pretty fast process for him to do that, not too expensive. Again, I'll show you the cost breakdown on a spreadsheet once I'm finished going through all the photos. Here's another angle of the living room. Also noticed that my friend who painted the whole house, he painted that wood panel. Remember that this wall, this back wall was all wood paneling, which he painted white, and whatever paint he used adhered to that. I think it was not wood, it was some sort of synthetic product, but it adhered well. So we were very thankful we didn't have to mess around with going over that wall. You know, upon retrospect, you could probably throw some sheet vinyl, get a cool wood pattern and throw that over that wall. And if you needed to go over some sort of plastic thing that you couldn't paint, could have done that. I painted those stairs myself, that nice gray color, easy to do. We decided to go kind of a white/cream wall with light gray trim and then black hardware. That was just our stylistic choice. I think it turned out pretty nicely. Here's a view into the kitchen stairwell. Again, all the light fixtures got updated. And then here is the bathroom upstairs. Again, we painted that floor tile. We had our repairman, our handyman, replace a lot of that shower tile that had come off or was cracked. And then we used the same product that we used for painting the floors and glazing the floors. We used that on the shower tile. We did not do anything to the vanity. I think we replaced that toilet. We just deep cleaned the heck out of that vanity. It was one of the grossest and dirtiest vanities we'd ever seen. And I think we replaced those light fixtures with a couple pendant lights hanging down there in that bathroom just to give it a nice kind of feel despite the outdated vanity look. Clean and presentable is usually gonna pass the smell test for an interested tenant or tenant buyer. This is a view of the hallway. Again, we used sheet vinyl on the floor there looking into one of the bedrooms. We carpeted the bedroom super cheap from Home Depot, got a pretty good deal, and we just used really inexpensive carpet material. Updated the ceiling fan. We replaced the ceiling fan, painted all the doors, all the walls, which my friend did. Painted the closet doors. You can see that new baseboard heater thermostat on the wall. Replaced the light switches. I think Most of the light switches we replaced, they were that old ivory, dark yellow, kind of like rotting teeth color. We bought a bunch of light switches, 3-prong outlets or 2-prong outlets. We replaced all of those to give it a clean, crisp look, and then new outlet and light switch cover plates. Nothing special here. I do think I actually spray painted this old AC window unit, because finding those units are actually pretty expensive, and finding the right size would have been pretty difficult. And this one, it worked. So we decided to keep it, but we just spray painted it. Just clean and crisp bedrooms. Presentable, warm, inviting, nothing fancy, painted steps, and that's about it. So then let me show you the breakdown on an Excel spreadsheet to show you just how much everything costed us. All right, so here is the breakdown of what we spent. So the first thing we did when we got into this property was we cleaned it. We just cleaned it because it was super grody. I mean, it was very, very disgusting. So I have first round of cleaning. I anticipated doing multiple rounds of cleaning. We paid somebody just over $1,000, and most of it was labor costs because it took so much time to just scrub down, vacuum clean the house. To paint the entire unit, this wasn't actually a house, this was a townhome, but we did 3 rounds of painting. If you notice here, painting round 1, 2, and 3. The third round included the cabinets and then some miscellaneous items. But to get everything painted, you can see that the cost here, most of it is labor costs because it just takes time. Painting houses takes a lot of time. I know because I've painted multiple houses by myself. We spent approximately we'll call it about $4,500 just for the painting, which is actually a pretty good deal. Yeah, this house was about 1,300 square feet, and as a general rule of thumb, again, just general, you can count on painting costing about $35 per square foot, maybe $40 per square foot. Take the square footage, in our case, 1,300 square feet, multiply it by 3.5, and that gets us $4,500. So we ended up paying basically what the going rate would be to hire a professional painter to do all the painting that we did. And that's a little bit of our error because we suggested, in fact, encouraged my friend to spray paint everything. And I think that the mistake that we made was that he did not back roll, because spray painting can be a good way to apply paint, but then to get a good finish, using a roller is still a preferred thing to do. So he ended up spending more time painting than he really should have. And that's partly our error because we were giving him instruction on how to paint. Anyways, we didn't overpay on painting. We paid, I'd say, a fair market price on paint. There was drywall repair, and we fixed a toilet valve that was broken. And so our handyman, here's the cost for that. We spent $325 to do that. We pay our skilled handyman, we pay him $50 an hour because he can do just about everything and he can do things quickly. So when you're looking at the labor costs, you can just divide that by 50 to kind of see how much time he spent doing what. We demoed the toilet and fixed. Our contractor removed a toilet and repaired a leaky sink. That cost us $212. Our contractor installed lights throughout the house, a toilet, and a dishwasher, and that only took 7 hours. So we paid $350 for that. We replaced all the outlets. He also taped and mudded the drywall that he had to replace, and he had to replace the dishwasher valve. That took about 8 hours, some labor costs, so that cost us $473. Getting our new dishwasher installed and oven installed, there was a delivery fee, and the install and the time it took to install both of those, just about 4 hours, so that cost us $200. Again, he repaired some broken bath tile, he had to do some mudding, and he had to fix an electrical issue we had with the dishwasher. That cost us $250. Then there was the material costs and then the labor costs to replace all of those baseboard heaters. $900 in labor costs, $920 in material costs, so that ended up costing us just over $1,800 for that. And then the sheet vinyl installation, and also having to put the transitions between the tile and the sheet vinyl and install a few other things here. The cabinet backing, we had to basically put a sheet of, I think it's called Luan, over the back of one side of the cabinets that had that water damage on it, just to give it a better appearance. Get this, that sheet vinyl, forget exactly how much it cost, but it wasn't any more than $400. And the labor for everything in total, just over $1,700 to get all the sheet vinyl that we put down, and then also this cabinet backing and the transitions as well. These are sort of itemized by the payment date, right? So our contractor would go out, he'd do a bunch of stuff, we'd lump it into one line item, and that's why things are grouped together. Carpet for, I believe it was 4 bedrooms, cost us nearly $1,200. The countertop painting only cost us $250, which is just crazy to think how cheap that was. And then there was the outlet covers, the door handles, changing out the locks cost us $269. I guess what I didn't put into this budget here were costs for the paint, for the flooring, tile refinishing that we did. And there's probably a few other odds and ends, materials, things that we ended up doing ourselves that I didn't put in here, but they probably should be in here. So, round that rehab total cost up to at least $13,000. It might have been closer to $14,000, being completely honest, but that's not going to make or break the deal. So there you have it. So that was a little laborious and detail oriented, but that's kind of my style, and I hope that it gives you value so that you can learn what things actually cost on a very cheap, budget centric rehab. This was a rehab where I was in that property quite a bit, probably for several weeks, just doing stuff, cleaning, painting, running to the store to get materials. And it took a lot of time to get this rehab done, but we did it on the cheap. And so we weren't very much out of pocket. Now it ended up costing me my time, and that is the trade-off. And so you might ask, was it really worth it? Was it worth multiple weeks of my time to have a deal like this, which cash flows me $460 a month, and for which I was only $3,000, maybe $4 into it in terms of my own cash? Now, this deal has been in operation for over a year, so I've made all that money back, right? Because if I'm only $3,000, let's just call it $4,000 and be generous in the deal, right? I'm $4,000 cash in the deal, but I make $5,500 annually from the deal. Well, then if a year passed, I've already made all of that money back and then some. So from my perspective, for where I was at in my business at this particular time, there being no other opportunity that was low-hanging fruit to close and do a deal on, I think this was worth my time. But you tell me, maybe I should have passed on this deal and figured out how to work smarter and not harder, and maybe I could have done more deals within that time that I was spending doing a stupid rehab. Can't change the past. What's happened has happened, and now I'm moving forward, and I've learned from my experience, and I hope you've learned a little bit about what can be done with an industrious and creative mindset when you approach renovating a property and making it presentable for a tenant buyer or a buyer. One thought I've always had, and I'll leave you on this note, is if I knew a contractor who was interested in investing, and in fact, I know multiple, and I've had this conversation with a couple, but here's something to think about. If there was a general contractor who wanted to get into real estate for the cash flow, and I could partner with them and do an equity partnership with them so that they were an owner in the property, then that would be a fantastic way to renovate properties and to use general contractors, because it would be their skin in the game, right? Their cash flow, their profitability hinges on their ability to do things quickly and inexpensively and smartly, I might say. And so you might want to think about, if you know general contractors or are a general contractor, partnering with somebody who's doing deals like this. You can use a revocable trust to structure the partnership and the percentages, whatever you agree upon, and structure a partnership that way, where the contractor is spending their money on materials and their time on the labor, and they're going to be in it for that, but they're not going to have to pay anything to you to be in the deal. It's just going to be their time, their money to get the property looking good so that it can be marketable to get it operational. So what is that worth to you, and how would you structure that kind of deal creatively so that, again, you can be in these deals for less of your money and for less of your time? So, which is ultimately what we want to do here when we're doing creative finance. If you found this content helpful, interesting, perhaps inspirational, or it sparked some ideas for you and your investing business, then please let me know. Hit that like button, subscribe, and leave a comment just to tell me exactly what you think about this video. I'll be doing more videos in weeks to come. Right now, I've slowed down slightly because I am working on putting together my platform, my mentorship platform, which is amazing. I just finished a calculator for analyzing deals, and I am working on an intro course to Subject 2. We've already started a mentorship program, but if you're interested in all of that, reach out to me at hans@subtoinvestor.com, and I can send you details. Until then, stay creative. Peace.